Hello and welcome to Fast Track. I'm Akhtar Khan. This week we're on the tropical Turks and Caicos Islands for the annual World Travel Awards, better known as the Oscars of the travel industry. Coming up in this edition of the programme, we reveal just who has won those World Travel Awards, the boutique hotel which survived the tsunami and went on to win an accolade, and how tourism is helping to revive an island's maritime heritage.
There you go. There you go.
Some of the biggest names in the travel industry will be gathering here in the Turks and Caicos Islands for the annual presentation of the World Travel Awards. We'll be speaking to some of the winners a little later in the programme. But I wonder how many of them actually use the internet to make their bookings to get here. Now, the World Wide Web has had a massive impact on the travel industry. For the first time next year in the UK, it's predicted that the number of travel bookings made through the internet will overtake those made through travel agents. But it's not just bookings. The internet has worked its magic. Simon Hancock has more.
For a long time, this was about as high-tech as travel booking got. You read teletext, dialed the number of the travel agent and booked. Oh, but remember, first you had to wait for the right page to come round.
I think it was very early days. I don't think people realised 10 years ago probably what was going to happen. 90% of people that have got access to the internet go online every week to research leisure or travel.
Some, like Expedia and Travelocity, quickly recognised the potential of the internet. Both are seen as pioneers and both are about to celebrate their 10-year anniversaries. Other, less web-savvy, more traditional travel companies just saw another place to post those adverts. Continuing the charge of innovation, the low-cost airlines, lastminute.com, TripAdvisor all had their place really in creating the online travel market as one of the largest on the web, and in fact actually changing the way we travel. Today, while Teletext Holidays still has its Teletext business, even it has gone into the internet in a big way. And who can blame them? The European online travel market is already worth 46 billion euros and is growing at around 30 or 40% a year.
A complete new world to people, and we see today that people are now travelling 3 or 4 times a year, probably for 3 or 4 days. The 2-week holiday is actually not as popular now as the 1-week holiday, so it changed the way people travel.
Many of the big travel brands were slow to get into gear. There was room for young internet startup companies to act as intermediaries, driving traffic to the retailers, rather like teletext. But as the big boys like Thomson have got up to speed online, for intermediaries, that niche between customer and retailer is no longer a nice place to be. While few companies are going to try to take on the big travel retailers now, today there is a new battle online. Sites like YouTube and MySpace are the new darlings of the internet, getting millions of visitors to their user-generated sites. There are many companies trying to come up with the travel equivalent of this. TripAdvisor is to date by far and away the most famous, with users supplying hotel reviews, even candid photos of their travels. But while phenomenal success, there is a feeling there's still plenty of room for others. Here at the website of the UK's Guardian newspaper, they've been working on their version of this type of site, Been There, for the last year. The website's users leave up-to-date tips and suggestions on cities around the world, which other readers try out and rate. The site is gaining a steady following among like-minded people, already receiving 500,000 visits a month and growing quickly.
You ask travellers how they get information about a place, and they want recommendations from people who have been there. We really hope it will become a very mainstream way that travellers research their trips, both beforehand and hopefully while they're away as well.
Soon through the site you will effectively be able to compile and print your own guidebook from the user's tips you like the look of.
I think that the days of the guidebook aren't quite over yet, although obviously Been There and other sites like it are available free of charge, and guidebooks can be quite a pricey addition to a weekend break, for example.
And there are plenty of other interesting developments to look out for. Farecast, for instance, has just been launched in the US. By analysing the patterns of low-cost airfares, it tells you exactly when you should book to get the best deals. And sites like turnhere.com have started to appear. Here, travelling filmmakers can upload videos on places of interest around the world, giving user-generated travel content yet another twist. Could this idea even signal the eventual death of the travel programme? This used to be about as high-tech as travel booking got, but it's worth remembering that even last year, 10 million phone calls to travel agents in the UK came through teletext. All those people still doing it like this. For the internet and travel, there is still a long way to grow.
Just some of the ways the internet has transformed the way we travel. Well, we'd like to hear from you. Do you use the internet to make your bookings for holiday or business travel? Is there a favourite website you have, or maybe you'd like to share some tips with us? Why not email us? The usual address is fasttracktravel@bbc.co.uk. But for now, let's take a look at this week's travel news. Here's Carmen Roberts.
The US government has lifted its total ban on liquids, gels and aerosols on board flights to the country. The US Transportation Security Administration says passengers can now carry travel-sized toiletries that fit comfortably into a clear plastic zip-top bag. A new report has suggested that World Heritage sites such as the Great Barrier Reef or Kathmandu in Nepal could be taken off the tourism map by 2020 due to effects of climate change and too many visitors. The Centre for Future Studies report listed 10 popular destinations, including Athens in Greece, Croatia's Dalmatian coast, as well as the Maldives. Space tourist Anusha Ansari's space blog is giving people on Earth a unique, non-professional's view of spaceflight, including the trials of space sickness and the unique thrill of living and working in weightlessness. Ansari is the fourth space tourist and the first woman to pay $20 million for a trip to the International Space Station.
Thanks very much indeed, Carmen. Now, some of the leading lights of the world travel industry have gathered here for the 13th Annual World Travel Awards. It's an opportunity not only to pick up a prize for themselves, but also to celebrate the achievements of the travel industry in 2006. Let's take a look. Since in 1993, the World Travel Awards have established themselves as the big event in the travel industry calendar. Unlike other gongs, these awards are voted for by members of the industry themselves, making them a sort of Oscars of the travel world.
And the winner is Turks and Caicos!
Travel professionals from 80,000 travel agencies in over 200 countries have cast their votes, and winning a World Travel Award has become one of the highest accolades the industry can bestow. Well, to find out more about this year's event here at the Turks and Caicos Islands, I'm joined by travel Nick Eason, who's been covering the World Travel Awards for the past few years now. Nick, thanks very much for joining us here on Fast Track. Let's start off immediately by this year's ceremony. What do you make of this year's World Travel Awards?
Well, there's a lot of travel industry awards. I think this is one of the largest. 3,600 different categories, different nominees are put forward in this arena, and there are 791 categories. So it's a vast array of award winners here tonight.
Let's take a look at some of the winners this year. British Airways student prize for the best airline in the world. Let's talk about that some of them.
They've been doing very well. Willie, a lot of amazing things with this airline. I mean, he's a tough guy, ex-Aer Lingus. He's come in, he's done a lot with this airline. You know, he's reduced the pension deficit. He's done a lot in terms of appealing to also the first class all the way down to economy class, and even tackling the no-frills carriers, which a lot of people aren't able to do. So he's done a lot with this airline. I think this is an endorsement for that.
Abu Dhabi's Etihad picked up the prize for best new airline.
3 years on the road, they've been doing very well. Etihad, the reason why the Middle East picked up 8 awards this year. The region's been doing very well. The reason why is that in the travel and tourism industry, people realise with the high oil price, there's been a lot of investment in that region, and the money's just shifted out of the US and more into the Middle East. And so a lot of those travel and tour companies have been doing very, very well, especially Etihad. They're expanding. They've got a new route coming into New York very, very soon. And they have the product right. They've been engaging the consumer. They're very young. They're only 3 years old. So they've been doing very well.
We can't get away from the fact that the World Wide Web has also received recognition in the World Travel Awards.
Amadeus eTravel. It's a system that is used by travel agents. They still use this system. They haven't moved beyond this. But these days, in many cases, they're competing with people like Expedia, Travelocity. When you buy your travel, when you go into a travel agent, you're still using very traditional systems. But these traditional systems for booking are also evolving very fast. So they're actually putting a lot more information, a lot more content on the system, so that when you go and book, if you find out about your holiday, your price of your ticket, you can also find out a lot more information about the destination and what's going on around. So they're evolving very fast as well. It's not just the online environment that's evolving. So that's why Amadeus has done so well here.
All right, Nick. Thanks so much indeed. Thanks for joining us. Well, stay with us here on Fast Track, because still coming up, we pay a visit to an award-winning Thai hotel which survived the tsunami and find out how tourism has helped to revive a traditional industry here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Now, over the past few years, one of the biggest trends in the global travel industry has been the growth of boutique hotels. Now, one Thai hotel has scooped a prize, despite almost being destroyed by the tsunami just before it was due to open.
Well, we were due to open, originally we were hoping we'd be open for Christmas 2004, and people would tell me that always the contractors are going to be slightly late, and indeed they were, not by a lot, but a little bit. So we delayed the opening till January the 10th. So Christmas 2004 we were here, and pretty much everything was finished. It was finishing touches, really. So the rooms, beds were made, TVs, hi-fis, things like that were all installed. And Christmas Eve, Kate and I left here quite late, and the lights were on, and we thought, no, this is all right. This is what we've talked about it. And of course, 48 hours later, us and large portions of Asia were badly affected by the tsunami. And I think probably because it was such a sort of, the scale of the event was so large that there was no personal why me feeling. We didn't feel a sort of sense of, oh my goodness, we're just making a bad mistake and we've done something wrong. And I think we were obviously insured, which is this cautiousness of managing your own money. So, you know, we were properly covered, and we were obviously physically okay, as were all our staff. So we really had no option other than to sort of set about putting it back as we had planned, because nothing had changed. Obviously, the reasons for being here, beautiful beach, lovely islands offshore, national parks, were all here. We just had a bit of a mess to clear up and put back. So we sort of again made decisions that day by day seemed the sensible ones, the right ones to make. So we kept all the staff, which at the time was just something, it was a heart decision. It was business-wise, you would say, you should anybody until you need them because it's costing you. But from our heart, we just thought, we can't possibly get rid of these staff that we were just about to open a resort with. So they all stayed and with us worked to put back and oversee the contractors and put back the resort, and progressively it became clearly achievable, and we were very focused and everyone stayed with us, and the target was to open October last year, 2005, which we did.
Andrew Kemp there, and the story of his award-winning hotel in Thailand. Well, let's head back to the studios now and join Aaron Heselhurst for this week's edition of Flight Track.
Thanks, Actor. Hello and welcome to Flight Track. Well, let's start with more news on security, but this time it's the world's first. Scandinavian Airlines, known as SAS, has introduced the very first biometric system which checks that an item of baggage belongs to the same person that takes the flight. Passengers checking in baggage have their index finger scanned and fingerprint recorded. The information is stored in the SAS passenger register and correlates with the details on the baggage tag. A second fingerprint scan is carried out at the departure gate, ensuring that the person who checked in the baggage is the same person who boards the aircraft. All information is then automatically erased when the customer completes the journey. The airline plans to roll out the system throughout Sweden, Denmark. Now, as airlines compete to fill their seats, Germany's Lufthansa is planning to keep some business class seats empty to attract customers by offering more room. From the end of October, business class passengers will find the neighbouring seat on all regional and European Lufthansa flights empty. The airline hopes the empty seat strategy will give it an advantage over competitors. And finally, how about a certain Asian low-cost carrier that sells blankets on its flights? According to certain newspaper reports, when blanket sales are slow, the flight attendants, who get a commission on sales, ask the pilots to lower the cabin temperature. Well, that's it from me. I'll see you here next week on Flight Track.
Thanks very much indeed, Aaron. Now, like many islands around the world, boats in the sea have long been an important part of life here in Turks and Caicos. For centuries, small fishing vessels known as sloops had been the traditional form of transport here, but the introduction of island-hopping planes almost led to their demise. Kemp now reports.
Sloops have always been an important part of these islands. Ever since the traders from Bermuda arrived here on boats similar to these in 1678, they've had a crucial role in everyday living, used for conch fishing or simply commuting between the islands. But the arrival of cheaper and easier to maintain fiberglass boats and the increasing popularity of outboard motors in the late 70s almost spelled the end of the Turks and Caicos sloops. When Herman Ross arrived here 2 years ago, he soon realized that with the sloop's demise, the island's entire maritime history was at risk of disappearing too.
The Federation started by people. 21 people came to a meeting and decided that they wanted to preserve the maritime heritage of the Turks and Caicos Islands. I had the experience of doing that with other organizations, and so they essentially elected me to do that.
Now the Maritime Heritage Federation is trying to involve all the islanders in taking an active part in preserving their own maritime heritage. Those who know how to build sloops are being encouraged to pass on their skills to the younger generations to keep these traditions alive. George Dean's family have been building boats for more than 80 years. They were one of the 2 remaining families on this island who carried on building sloops even when everybody else gave up.
It's in the family, it's an old tradition inside the family. And what really encouraged us most of all to build more boats, Russ came to the island and encouraged us to do, right? So we keep it, in other words, we keep it up because we like to go sail, which would make us a very good seaman, a good racer.
You have to remember that your maritime heritage is something that's precious.
The understanding and the importance of these boats is part of the primary school education too. At this local school, the 10 and 11-year-olds are learning not only about the history of the island sloops, but also how to sail them.
You pull it to you, and you hold it there now. Don't pull it around.
Up until a few years ago, these sloops, they were once the backbone of the Turks and Caicos economy, were in real danger of disappearing. But regatta like this one, which locals now organize every few months, is a real proof of their determination to preserve this part of the island's maritime heritage.
Building sloops doesn't come cheap. People here mainly rely on donations, although around 1% of the money collected from the tourist tax is also being invested in new boats. And that money has helped to finance the building of 7 more sloops, bringing a total of 14 now in use on the island.
There you go. There you go.
The locals now hope that soon tourists will also be able to take part in racing.
As our population grows, as the lifestyle of our people grows, we get a bigger and bigger middle class as business improves, as development improves. That allows native people more free time, more free money to pursue activities like this. So it's the development of the country actually that's helped this along.
What was once an almost forgotten tradition is now a part of everyday life here. Since the Maritime Heritage Federation was formed almost 2 years ago, it has encouraged all generations not only to build and sail boats, but also to a deep understanding of their culture and the importance of preserving their sailing tradition that is so unique to these islands.
Inga Loveridge-Kemp reporting there. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the programme, but don't forget to tune in next because we'll be visiting one of Asia's most underrated cities, Seoul in South Korea, and we'll be taking a look at the latest development in business class cabins. So, until then, from me, Akhtar Khan, and the rest of the Fast Track team from the Turks and Caicos Islands here at the 13th Annual World Travel Awards, goodbye and thanks for watching.